So, morning, Mr. Griffith.
Hi, good morning.
Nice man. Now, you would have seen this clip, and you would have heard what the Minister of National Security had to say as it relates to a crime plan, saying that he is not responsible for coming up with a crime plan. He said he's responsible for policy and ensuring that the protective services have the resources. But a crime plan really lies with the Commissioner of Police and the Defense Force. I think he mentioned that as well, if I'm not mistaken in what I just heard. So, as a former Minister of National Security, what is the responsibility of a Minister of National Security?
Well, good morning from Ghana to Tobago. Initially, when he made the statement that he's not responsible for the safety and security of citizens, I thought it would have been the dumbest statement ever made by a security minister. I wish to apologize. I was wrong. His new comment is undoubtedly the dumbest comment ever made by anybody as a national security minister in the history of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It is clear that this man does not understand his job. He does not know how to read the room. He's trying to be very technical. The fact of the matter is that the catalyst for crime reduction is the implementation of government policies.
Right.
So when it is that, it is not coincidental that for the last 30 years, every time the PNM is in power, crime goes up. And any other government that replaces the PNM, crime goes down. This is not coincidental. It is because the concept shows that the catalyst for crime reduction is the implementation of government policies. So going to the concept, the word is a word that we have used, two words we have used constantly in this country are crime plan. So let me clarify. A crime plan is a plan to commit crime. So the media and persons who continue to use these stupid words, what's your crime plan? Why would a minister want to have a plan to commit crime? So there's no such thing as a crime plan when it comes to national security.
Okay.
What you are, so that's the first thing. But it's our media lack of understanding in basic concept of criminological theory and national security. What you expect is that the Minister of National Security, if you look at the role and function, it is to direct policies, and policies play a catalyst towards crime reduction. So what he has done, he has yet again shirked his responsibility. He has passed the buck, and he's basically trying to do try to say, well, look, it wasn't me, and blame the police. You cannot, because I can tell you, as a Minister of National Security, it is critical for the minister to look at all the different things, analyze the resources that you have, upon which you can come up with and utilize the proper resources to reduce crime in an effective and efficient manner. So the policies that you direct, the law enforcement agencies operationalize those policies. What happened is because I was, as a commissioner of police, because of my knowledge as a security minister, I was directing, I was basically drafting policies as a commissioner and then operationalizing on it, because of the absence of Minister Hines' understanding and Stuart Young, who didn't have a clue about national security. So I was doing both, I was fitting both roles. So that's why, as the commissioner...
Oh gosh. What happened there? I don't know what happened there. That's not. We're getting back. I don't know why the call dropped. We went on with Digicel this morning. That's not my call back. Yeah. Gary, sorry about that. I don't know, the call dropped, but go ahead.
Yeah, I thought I didn't pay a phone bill. Okay. So what it is that as the Commissioner of Police, I would have drafted policies and then operationalized those policies in the absence of a proper Minister of National Security, both Stuart Young and Fitzgerald Hines.
Yeah.
So that's why you will form things like the Emergency Response Patrol, the Commissioner's Command Center, the Special Operation Response Team. Those are things that a Minister of National Security should be thinking about, and then you draft the policies and the police operationalize them. And I can give you an example to show that Fitzgerald Hines, let me just give me 15 seconds here to show why he is wrong. As the Minister of National Security, I drafted, and under the government I was in at the time, as the Minister of National Security, I understood the importance of policies. I drafted the National Operations Center, the Rapid Response Unit, which was equivalent to the Emergency Response Patrol, the Child Protection Unit, the Counter Human Trafficking Unit, the National Security Training Academy. All of these things can be seen as an anti-crime initiative or anti-crime plan. The emergencies, the energy sector security initiative, which was done to ensure we can have an immediate action plan in case of any natural or man-made disaster in the energy sector, which, had it continued, that disaster with the divers may not have taken place. the
Wow.
formation of the Community Comfort Patrol, bringing in the private security to work in tandem with the police to show higher visibility. I'm just tickling the minds of people to understand what the nonsense I spoke about. I drafted the National Security Special Operation Group, which was a tactical unit, the re-implementation of the Highway Patrol, bringing in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force to work with the police service. If you recall, in Laventil, for 125 days, there was one murder because we pumped the defense force there. The National Security Alert State forming strategic relationships with our international allies to ensure that our law enforcement officers can be trained and get better information and intelligence gathering. All of these things is what a Minister of National Security is supposed to be doing. And by setting these policies, you give it to the police, the defense force, or whoever, for them to operationalize it. For this man to be so clueless to say that his job is similar to an administrative clerk and he just has to sign checks to give resources shows why this country is failing. This man has now proven to be the most incompetent minister in the history of Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow. Yeah, because but understanding everything you're saying there, it's not a crime plan, and I and all never even check it. So a crime plan is what somebody will to commit crime. It's an anti-crime plan, and part of the anti-crime plan is policy driven. Which comes from the ministries and the cabinet and so on and so forth. It doesn't seem that like if they have any clue at this point in time, or even moving forward, because even recently here the Prime Minister at a sword turning ceremony was asked questions about the crime situation and home invasions that are taking place, and he just, according to the media reports, he jumped into his SUV and he did not answer the questions. I mean, is it not his responsibility as the head of the National Security Council to at least engage the media on such a serious issue?
Yeah, but we see what happened in August 2018, August 2021. The burden fell solely on the then Commissioner of Police. So they did not have that issue. They did not have that concern. When it is he started to interfere and do his nonsense because of his pettiness and not doing what is right for the country, he now has to accept the responsibility, because the media never spoke to the Prime Minister or the Minister of National Security as it pertains to any matter of crime or even national security. They would have turned to me. Now that I am no longer there, the burden now lies on them and they cannot do it. And going back to the Fitzgerald Hines situation, Trinidad and Tobago understand the stupidity of what this man has said. This is equivalent to somebody who is the minister of, say, public utilities, and he's saying, we have a serious problem with water. He can now say, well, listen, that is not my role and function as the head of WASA to see about it. This is similar to you speaking to the Minister of Health and saying, we have a serious problem in this facility, in this regional, in this hospital. But that is not my responsibility. That's the head of the hospital to deal with it. That is what this man has done. It's like I'm telling a Minister of Sport, hockey is dying. She'll say, well, that's not my responsibility. That's the head of the hockey board to deal with. This is what he has done. He has shirked his responsibility, and he does not understand his ministerial responsibility to understand that policy-driven systems in a ministry guides and operationalize the other units in your ministry. And failure for that, and because of that void in leadership by Fitzgerald Hines, he has now tried to pass the buck on Earl Christopher. And national security and reducing crime is much bigger than Earl Christopher.
Yeah.
A simple example is when I am in government in the next year and a half, one of the first things that we will do is to establish a border protection unit. The border protection unit is critical to reduce crime because there's easy access for illegal guns to enter the country. And because we only have one arm of the protective services on the port that the police do not have access to, you form a unit comprising police, sailors, soldiers, customs, immigration, undercover officers to prevent illegal guns from entering the country. That is not a police matter. So for him to be so foolish to say that to reduce crime is solely a police matter, it shows his lack of understanding in the other arms of national security that are critical to provide that holistic approach to find the proper policies to ensure that these units can be operationally driven in a successful manner.
Now let me ask you something. There have been a few calls in certain quarters, and you mentioned, the Minister of National Security, Hines, also mentioned the Defense Force in his conversation, right? And I just want to bring in that for 1 second, because I know you spoke on it already, but not on this program. I remember a senior member of the Defense Force recently in an article stating that the Defense Force is not trained to handle policing matters, something to that effect. Not as in exact words, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And we've heard calls from people. I have heard calls from people saying, well, why do they not deploy the army with the police and have joint patrols to put more boots on the ground to create more visibility? Now, just on that point of the defense force not being properly trained to do policing, what's your thoughts on that as a former, member of the defense force?
Well, yeah, so the guy who was the person who is now the chief of defense staff, the substantive chief of defense staff, Darren Daniel,
right.
He joined the defense force the exact day as me.
Okay.
And that's 1988. We returned almost simultaneously from the United Kingdom. So he trained in Dartmoor while I went to Sandhurst.
Mm-hmm.
And it is unfortunate that he's 100% incorrect. And it is very sad that the chief of defense staff does not understand, one, the role and function of the defense force, and two, the training that members of the defense force have. Because the role and function of the defense force is straightforward. It is not just to deal with protecting our country from external aggression, but also as an aid to civil power and to support the law enforcement agencies internally. So for him to make that comment, it means that he's not aware of the role and function of the defense force. Secondly, what he said is 100% incorrect, because me, being a previous military commissioned officer, we are trained and understand what was known previously as counter-revolutionary warfare. We are trained to be able to and then train our own soldiers in roadblocks, corner and search, vehicle checkpoints, patrols, joint patrols, foot patrols, vehicle patrols. All of these things are, and the reason why we are trained in that is to ensure that we adhere to our role and function in the defense force. So Darren Daniel, being a sailor, he may not have understood that all soldiers are trained for this type. And for him to say that, it means that he doesn't understand what is known as the interagency task force, because that is present. That has been done for the last 20 years. No. What has happened is because of this government's incompetence and failure to understand the role and function of the defense force, they are not being utilized in a proper manner. Again, come 2025 Trinidad and Tobago, the defense force will be used en masse as much as possible to support the police service. And that is what they are there for. It was done in 2011 during the state of emergency. Granted that whether it is that it was right or wrong for the state of emergency, but you would have seen it. You would have seen soldiers, their armor, patrolling with the police. And this time around, when we had the state of emergency, to ensure that to have people stay in their homes at night, not one member of the defense force came to support us. And this has nothing to do with the members of the defense force. I know them. Each and every one, they want to come out and support the police service. That's what they got into the defense force for. But the politicians, it has to be politically driven. And the politicians refuse to bring out one member of the defense force during a state of emergency. Hear this. We had 150 men coming down into Port of Spain to destroy Port of Spain during the Black Lives Matter movement. They were coming to and they were using that as an excuse to destroy Port of Spain. Not one member of the defense force came out. These numbers were larger than how many people were there that took over the country during the attempted coup. So if it is you're not using the defense force for situations like that, we cannot expect that the defense force is only going to be of value to Trinidad and Tobago every 30 or 40 years during a possible revolution or an attempted coup. So that is why it is that we need proper leadership. The government certainly doesn't understand. I was also very disappointed yesterday in that media conference. The Vice Chief of Defense Staff, you have to be very careful to understand your professionalism as a military officer. You can't be every comment made by the minister, you're laughing, you're giggling, you're smirking, you're smiling, you're opening your eyes wide when the media asks him certain questions. You are not there as a proper puppet to any politician. And that is the sad state of affairs we have in this country, where it can be perceived that persons who get positions of authority, inclusive of law enforcement, based on their affiliation alliance, or even trying to be a puppet to politicians. And that is a dangerous precedent. It is hoped that the defense force can understand, because this would have never taken place under Carl Alfonso, John Sandy, Joe Theodore, Commodore Franklin. No. These individuals understood their role and function as a chief of defense staff. They would have to wait on the government. They would have sent out troops out there during those 150 men coming into Port of Spain during the state of emergency, telling the minister, our troops are up and ready, and we are ready to join the police service in the fight against crime. That is the type of proactivity and leadership we need. We need both in ministerial capacity and that of law enforcement.
And well, the other two things I wanted to touch on very quickly here before we run out of time. Two other calls that were made. The FUL situation has come back to bite people in their behind, especially with this last incident with the Chaguanas businessman. And we that entire process seems to have stalled. I see in the paper this morning you're talking about political interference plays a significant role in stalling that entire process. There was also the news that the Chaguanas businessman that was killed, unfortunately, had a provisional for like 18 months, if I saw correct and I read
Yes.
correct. And outside of that, we see the business community, outside of their call for the granting of FULs for citizens and business people to defend themselves, we also see calls for the hangman to return. So I wanted to share your thoughts on those two particular issues, if you could.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so the first thing as it pertains to the FUL, the government now is forced to double down on their nonsense. They tried an attempt, which is what this PNM is good for. They try their best to lie, to try to discredit others. They didn't expect me to fight back. And now I've fought back through even the court stating, listen, you're fast and out of place to have persons commit do an audit. You're out of place. It is not to go to Parliament. You cannot hide like cowards in Parliament. If you want to say something about Gary Griffith, be a man and say it's outside, so he'll deal with you. So they have tried their best to lie and mislead the country. So to state that when Mr. Hines again tries to throw Christopher under the bus by stating, well, it's her responsibility because of the shortcomings that had before.
Yeah.
Because the shortcomings took place before me, because before me we had persons getting firearms, getting negligent discharges, losing their firearm, using it for a crime. Not one firearm issued by myself was ever used for a crime, lost, stolen, used for a murder, because we had such a stringent system, 14 policies inclusive of the chip, making sure that when that person is, we do the background check, the psychometric testing, we do everything. And because of that, that is why it is that so many more firearms were issued. And we say so many more firearms, it is 0.2% of civilians in the country were issued firearms under my watch. It was 2,000 civilians out of 50,000 applicants outstanding. And that is because of the failure of commissioners before me to do their job. So because I did my job well, Fitzgerald Hines, don't mislead the country to say that it was not being done properly. Because as I said, there was not one mistake made of anyone getting a firearm under my watch at the time when I was Commissioner of Police. So to mislead the country to say, well, they're doing a stringent approach. When you get your provisional permit Trinidad and Tobago, it means that everything has already been completed. So it is just paperwork to change it from a provisional to a FUL. It is based on vindictiveness and pettiness that they said, look, all of those people who got provisional police, don't give it to them. So what they've done, the government is again bullying and interfering in matters that do not concern the police service, that do not concern, the government. So what they have done now is that they're bullying them, but it's okay when Fitzgerald Hines and the previous acting commissioner, the Prime Minister, could ask you for over 60 FULs and firearm dealership licenses for their friends. They believe, this government believes that firearms are only for the rich, famous, and their close allies. I beg to differ. Again, come 2025, I wish to tell the country, persons who are eligible based on their track record, based on the need for it, whether you're a farmer, a hunter, a small businessman, somebody involved in sport, and you adhere to the criteria, you would get a firearm. You are not going to get a firearm, Trinidad and Tobago, in this government. So understand that. This is going to be a major political platform meeting, because you understand that this government, they are mortified. They do not want law-abiding citizens to get firearms. They've spent more time dealing with fighting down law-abiding citizens to get firearms than dealing with illegal firearms being given to criminals. As it pertains to hangman, let me clarify yet again. In 2018 to 2021, there was no hangman. Crime there was the biggest reduction in crime in 20 years. The crime went down to the number 4. So unfortunately, the comment by Derek Chin, yet again, is a wild idea based on no empirical testing, no data, no research methodology. If we even want to use data, because we have criminologists here that do not interview prisoners, they do not do data, they just wait for the media to contact them to make comments to sell their books. If you look at the United States, there's a higher murder rate in states that have that have execution of murderers than states that do not. In Canada, after 27 years of the death penalty being removed, there was a 44% reduction in murders. There have also been situations where they believe that hanging has caused a justification for people to believe that violence is the way to go. And I'm not here to defend or not. My point is, it is an irrelevant point. Derek Chin making this comment is similar to saying, well, let's put on polka dot pants back to front and see if that will reduce crime. You can't put wild ideas without empirical testing and data. And instead of every time it says that we reach this point, what direction and all the business sector should be doing is stating, listen, we know what is the problem. Our Prime Minister deliberately interfered in the process for a commissioner of police when things were working. But you know why businessmen don't want to do that? They're afraid it affects their business because it affects their state contracts. And the same business chambers who are crying crocodile tears now, who want firearms, why, when it is that Keith Rowley was trying to remove the sitting Prime Minister, when they were all calling me, thanking me constantly, they didn't stand up and say, what you're doing is wrong. We must not be, we cannot be selling our soul for the almighty dollar in Trinidad and Tobago. I asked businessmen chambers, where were you when this 3 years ago, a year and a half ago, Keith Rowley started interfering with the process? Now that he has done it, and I'm no longer there, you're crying and bawling down the place for firearms, and you're bringing up wild ideas about bringing back the hangman. What worked in 2018 and 2021? There was no hanging. So don't come with any wild comments. In 2013 and 2015, it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 25 years. There were no hangings. So let us get out of these wild ideas to please our political friends.
Okay, but just on that point with the hanging here before I run out of time. Just on that issue with the hanging, right? Now you're saying that there is data, and you call a few places that this data that you're referring to in terms of data. But do you not think that there is a difference in the culture between the countries that you're talking about, where the death penalty was removed and there was a reduction in crime, as opposed to Trinidad and Tobago, what we see playing out now, and the mentality of the people here?
I'm glad you said that, because it will emphasize my point.
Okay, go ahead.
In those countries, when persons commit murder, on most occasions, they will be arrested because there's a high detection rate.
Okay.
We do not have a high detection rate. So crime is a product of opportunity. If they see there's a deterrent and there are repercussions and consequences, persons will not commit crime, which is what I did. The Operation Command Center, the Emergency Response Patrol, high visibility, a rapid response, and the criminals backed off. That is how you provide the deterrent. To say now that if you provide the hangings, the average criminal, murderer, rapist, kidnapper, 99% of them are convinced that they are not going to be caught. So if you know you're not going to be caught, how you could be thinking that a criminal will look down the road and say, boy, if I get caught, I'll get hanged. They don't believe they're going to get caught. That is why you could go in Residence nightclub and shoot someone in cold blood opposite the commissioner's residence, 2 minutes away from St. James police station, and the police will turn up 45 minutes later. So I wanted you to see it to clarify the point of how ridiculous the hangman theory is, because the product of opportunity, no criminal believes he is ever going to get caught. So if he believes he's not going to get caught, he's not even looking down the road about the hangman. So let's stop with the wild ideas. All you need to do is look at what worked in the past, and then you will realize that when crime went down from number 1 to number 4, it was because of proper policing and proper leadership, proper management, proper accountability, and measuring performance. So business chamber and all of you all who are calling me and thanking me because of what I was doing, you didn't want to say a word because it will affect you wrongly. And now a year and a half later, you're crying and bawling down the place. You want to get back firearms? Change this government come 2025.
Now, I agree with you on that point that you made. The deterrent is the detection rate. If crimes are being, because I mentioned that a little while ago, the reason why they're committing crimes is because they don't believe they'll get caught. So if the detection rate is up and they know that the chances of them getting caught is high, then they will think twice. However, all I'm asking is this. If somebody commits a crime, because the death penalty, because, I mean, you're head of a political party now, you're vying for office, so let's just say you win the election. The death penalty is on the books, is it not?
Correct.
So if somebody goes before the court and they get the death penalty, should it not be carried out?
Well, again, it shows the lack of knowledge in law enforcement and the criminal justice system by the business sector. The hangings have never left. It is always there. It is not politicians or the court that is at fault, because our system allows the person to go through the court process, appeal, then take it to the Privy Council.
Right.
By that time, 5 years would have passed. The Pratt and Morgan situation will kick in,
right.
And now they will say that it is unjust for them to be incarcerated for over 5 years in death row and now still be hanged. So it has to do with the technicalities. It is not that hanging has stopped or that the government has stopped it. This has nothing to do with the politicians or the court. It is our criminal justice system. So again, it's because of when businessmen are affected and they never said a word when they should have said a word because they didn't want to affect their contracts. Now they're jumping up and bawling, so they're coming up with wild ideas.
But
have the strength to say what has caused the problem in Trinidad and Tobago. But you don't want to do that because you're afraid that you'll lose big business.
Okay, now, just real quickly here. This is the last question I have for you. You mentioned the criminal justice system, which it appears, right? I mean, under this administration, and even maybe the one before, and maybe the one before that, it appears that the criminal justice system is in disarray. It's almost as if it's on the verge of a collapse, if it's not collapsed already. So how do you plan to fix that? Because I mean, I'm not seeing where anybody is showing interest in trying to fix that criminal justice system.
Yeah, excellent point. And again, that is why when I was the National Security Advisor, I drafted what was known as the Ministry of Justice. You can't box in this in the Attorney General's office and that of the Ministry of National Security. After I left as Minister of National Security, the new government came in. They threw it out because they realized, well, this was something drafted by Gary Griffith for the last government. You need a Ministry of Justice to deal specifically with the transformation of our criminal justice system. It is as straightforward as that. When I was Minister of National Security, I drafted the cabinet note and approved it and endorsed it for the DPP to get all of the things that he required. After I left as the Minister of National, look at the date when the DPP claimed that the cabinet note was approved for him to get the 100 plus attorneys and the things that he wanted. It was under my watch, which again shows the importance of leadership. And all of these things are part of what you will call an anti-crime plan. Trying to assist the DPP, support him, and not be a petty childish Attorney General and trying to judge that DPP's performance to say he's not performing well. And you, Reginald Amor, have proven to be the worst Attorney General this country has ever seen. Because you keep feeling every time you open your mouth to act as a prop for Keith Rowley, you set up yourself.
Wow. All right. Well, Mr. Griffith, thanks a lot for joining us. And all the best, man.
Take care.